stay with the story, but take a bigger view now. And we move to the USA, which, of course, today began its travel ban of South Africa and other countries in the region after the highly mutated Omicron variant was identified by South African scientists last week. Now, it could take a few weeks until we know if Omicron spreads faster than other COVID variants. But we heard Professor Salim Abdul Karim saying it looks likely. We also don't know whether it can evade vaccine and natural immunity. But let's get the latest news from the USA. I'm joined by our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks. Hello, Simon. So has the USA reported any cases of the new variant Omicron as yet?
No cases here in the United States as of yet, Sally. We do know of 2 cases in Ontario up in Canada. Those are the first on the American continent. President Biden, just within the last few minutes, in fact, he's still on his feet at the White House, has been addressing the American people about the Omicron variant following a meeting that he's had with his top public health officials. He is flanked at the White House by Dr. Anthony Fauci, his chief medical advisor, who is wearing a KN95 face mask. That now back in play at the White House. And President Biden, within the last few minutes, said this variant is a cause for concern, not a cause for panic. He said we have more tools today to fight the variant than we have ever had before. He again urged those vaccine refuseniks in the United States who haven't taken up the offer of vaccination to get jabbed now while they can. He said that anybody who had completed their first round of full vaccination by the 1st of June now needed to go out and get a booster shot. He said he didn't see any need for a return to lockdowns in the United States. Of course, we never really had much of a meaningful lockdown here. And at the beginning of those comments, he singled out public health officials in South Africa. He said he applauded the work that they had done over the course of the last few weeks to research this new variant and then to raise the alarm globally about its existence.
Do you get a sense, after the very strong response from South Africa against the travel bans, of course kicked off by the United Kingdom, but do you get a sense that this has given countries like the UK and the USA pause to examine their knee-jerk reaction, as our government has called it?
Well, there was no indication as of yet in what the president has said that he's rethinking it. Indeed, he trumpeted his decision to institute that travel ban as an example of the rapidity with which his administration, he insisted, had taken this new variant seriously. But look, the Biden administration finds itself now accused of a substantial degree of hypocrisy. I mean, first of all, Joe Biden is the man who relentlessly criticised the Trump administration for travel bans that he and his colleagues at the time described as blunt instruments. Secondly, if you've got a travel ban in place against visitors from South Africa and other nations in southern Africa, why haven't you got a travel ban in place for visitors from places like the Netherlands or Belgium or now Canada or the UK, where the Omicron variant has spread? So there are questions here about the nature of this response and also about the fact that American citizens and legal residents of the United States who are in South Africa can still come to the United States. All they have to do is get a negative COVID test and provide proof of vaccination when they arrive here, and then there's no need for them to quarantine. They can literally be landing at John F. Kennedy Airport tonight and having dinner in Times Square, and they of course are equally capable of bringing that new variant into the United States as a South African citizen or citizen of another Southern African country would be. So there is not much logic to the move that the president unveiled over the course of the Thanksgiving holiday weekend here.
And Simon, in terms of the global response, what is the WHO saying today, and anything from anyone else in the United Nations?
Yeah, well, so the WHO said today that they think that this is a cause of considerable concern and they are worried that the variant is going substantially to spread. But the issue that all governments are confronting here is not whether this is a more transmissible strain of COVID-19, as we've heard repeatedly from South African doctors who first identified it. That seems to be evident. The question is, will the vaccines still prove effective in protecting people from severe illness or death resulting from the Omicron vaccine? And President Biden, just within the last few minutes, has said that Dr. Anthony Fauci believes that the vaccines will continue to offer some degree of protection against the variant, although he didn't detail what degree of protection he thinks that may be. He went on to say that he's working with the big pharmaceutical companies here in a bid from a contingency perspective to prepare additional boosters if they prove to be necessary. But you've got this wide divergence here between the head of one pharmaceutical company describing this as the Frankenstein variant and saying that it poses massive complexities for virologists, and yet you've got virologists speaking in parts of Europe today saying that they don't necessarily believe yet that it is proven that that is the case. We're in for a waiting game, and it could be another fortnight before we get a very clear sense of which of those two absolutely divergent paths is accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so far, I don't think anyone who's been identified with Omicron has had anything more than fairly mild symptoms. But as you say, everything is so uncertain. Here in South Africa, Simon, the debate around mandatory vaccines is kicking off again. The president saying last night, we've absolutely got to look at this. It's something that's being done in the USA, and Joe Biden has been pushing for it. Tell me how successful it's been and whether it's actually working.
Well, the honest truth is that we don't know, because the Biden administration is not issuing a blanket rule of mandatory vaccines. What it's backing is the ability of private employers of more than 100 employees to insist on vaccination by their members of staff, either vaccination or the presentation of a weekly negative test for COVID-19. And of course, as soon as the Biden administration announced that, there were legal challenges to it that so far judges in a variety of courts have upheld. So there's no question that that issue is going to head towards the US Supreme Court for adjudication, with some judges already arguing that what the Biden administration has tried to do is unconstitutional. Now, there is evidence that the implementation and the introduction of those vaccine mandates did encourage some unvaccinated Americans to go out and get jabbed. However, the definition of full vaccination here is very soon going to have to change from 2 vaccinations to 2 vaccinations plus a booster shot. And President Biden just conceded that the vast majority of Americans under that definition of full vaccination absolutely don't meet the mark.
Thank you very much. That's our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks.